Hello, and welcome to the Health Tech Marketing Show. I'm Adam Chirinas. I'm the CEO and founder of Health Launchpad. I want to give a big thank you to you for listening or watching today. And I also want to give a big thank you to my co-sponsor with this show, the amazing people from HIMS. They've been a big supporter of everything that we're doing here, pretty much since the start of the company. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, something I've got so much heart for, and that is social selling. It's been absolutely instrumental in how we've built Health Launchpad, and it's something that I have been focused on since day one. But to be honest with you, although I've been on LinkedIn since pretty much the early days, I think I got on 2004. I'm like in one of the top 1 or 2 or 3% of the early people on LinkedIn. I had never really used it effectively until about 3 or 4 years ago. And I actually hired a coach to help me with that. And I found it to be incredibly effective. But one of the things that's particularly challenging is how you do that at scale. And that's what today's episode is going to be about. So let me tell you what today's episode's not going to be about. This is not going to be about why you should be doing social selling, why social media is so wonderful and why it's so important for business. I'm going to assume you either know it or you don't care, in which case, sorry, this episode is not for you. What this episode is going to be about is about how you actually do it, particularly how organizations can do it at scale across teams of tens or even hundreds of sales and marketing people. And to do this, I brought somebody on to the episode who I've got to know over the last year, who I've really come to respect as a leading light in the whole area of social selling. In fact, he wrote a book on it. And that guy is Mr. Tim Hughes. Hi, Tim. Tell us about yourself and about DLAIgnite, and then let's get into social selling.
Okay, so I'm a new business salesperson. I've been in selling for 25 years, business to business enterprise. And I probably were about 10 years ago now that I was getting bored with corporate life and I wanted to actually set up my own business. And I was involved in social selling. So I actually helped roll out social selling across, I think it was about 4,000 people across Europe at a big US corporation, software company. And then I wrote a book back in 2016 and then set up my own company. So, and what we do is that we transform companies, sales teams and companies to use social strategically. So we're about revenue. So if there's anybody watching that wants to know how to put flowers on their LinkedIn profile, I'm not that person. If you want to know how you're going to generate money, growth, revenue, EBITDA from social selling, I'm the person to talk to.
Now you're based in the UK, but it sounds like you have clients worldwide, right?
Yeah, we have clients all over the world. We have a bunch of associates and partner organizations. We've got presence in Australia, in Canada, in the US, in South America. We've also got one in Australia as well. We just picked one up in France. So yeah, and what we're finding is that it doesn't matter really where you are. Humans are kind of humans and they react in the same way.
What I love about what you've done is that you got started, you got the bug and got into social selling well ahead of many other people and have really perfected, I think, before many others. But the other thing is that you also kind of perfected the whole remote thing well before COVID. There are a few companies that have done that. And I think that I don't know if you actually have an office, but
we don't.
You don't, no, nor do we. And it's amazing how well it works. All right, so let's get into it. What are the fundamental pillars of doing social selling at scale?
So to do social selling at scale, first and foremost, you need to understand it's a strategy. So what you'll see online, I mean, I loved your introduction, which is that there's a lot of people out there that are showing tactics. This is the best content, and really that none of that is, if you're chasing the algorithm or anything like that, you're just going to fail. This is a strategy, just like in a sales process, just like any other sales methodology, challenger or medic. And the important thing is that this lies against those. It's not competitive to that. So if you've got medic, you can put a social strategy. What we've done is we've developed a methodology that's actually been approved now by the Institute of Sales Professionals. It's the only externally examined social selling methodology in the world by a sales organization like that.
Let's just double click on that a sec. The notion of an institute of selling is not, in America, that's less of a thing. But I know in the UK and in Europe, there are institutes of industries that wouldn't typically have institutes. And so just talk a little bit, because that's a very meaningful thing. Yeah.
Yes. So what we're able to do is we're able to give a certification by the Institute of Sales Professionals. And for here in the UK, it's a bit like the driving test, which is where you actually take an exam. Yep. And there's a practical. So we will actually look at 3 months worth of you'll look at your LinkedIn profile and 3 months worth of activity. And just like any exam, you can fail it. And what happens is that it's externally examined by the ISP. So just like in the UK, accountants have a body that looks after them. The ISP is similar to that. And it took us 5 years to basically get that certification.
Wow.
It's not like some fly-by-night thing that I printed up and I can hand it out at the end of the course, which, I've done 5 different sales methodologies. And you always ended up with a certificate at the end of the course, which is like, well, does this actually show that you can use it? Well, not at all, because quite often you went back to the office and nobody did anything about it anyway.
Right. The binder goes on the shelf and you move on to the next.
Yeah.
All right. I got you off track there. So back to the pillars of this. So it's first and foremost, it's a strategy.
Yeah. So it's a strategy. And the 3 things that you need to really think about is that this is not about you. This is about buyers. So the buyers have control. And I know there will be people watching this saying, well, I'm a salesperson and I have control and I will control the sale. Yeah. Okay. But put that to aside for a second. If you think about the way that buyers buy now, with the fact that they're able to go online and search, and the latest, report from 6 Sense says that buyers are now 70% of the way through the buying process before they contact sellers. They have an awful lot of power, if not the power.
Yep, because it's 84% of the buyers then hire the first company they call because they've already decided.
Yeah. So the buyers have power. So we need to set ourselves up so that when buyers look at us, they go, that person could help us. I think that person's really interesting. Rather than, if your LinkedIn profile is a CV, what am I going to assume? Well, you're searching for a job. And so what we need is what we call a buyer-centric profile. It's a profile that doesn't say, here's my products and here's my services, because we can get that off the website. What we're looking for, if we're going to buy a business-to-business enterprise application, we're going to look for someone that's going to be around during the implementation. We're going to look for somebody that understands us, that maybe understands the industry that we're in. So we're going to be looking for those things. And at the end of the day, people buy people. So we're looking for a human element of it. So we're going to come on to that in a moment. So what we need is a buyer-centric profile. The second thing that we need is a wide and varied network. So we need to connect into the accounts that we're trying to influence. So with the ones that we're trying to sell to. Now, when I was in corporate, I used to sell to a company called GlaxoSmithKline, or GSK.
You're coming out of university, I had 2 job offers, and one of them was from Glaxo.
Yeah, and the competition for them was AstraZeneca or AZ. Now, one of the things was that whenever we sold into GSK, what we found was that the person that influenced the sale was actually somebody who was in AstraZeneca, because they used to work at GSK. And then what they would do is that they would phone up and say, you've got this product at AstraZeneca. What's it like? So when I talk about people that influence, it may not be the account, it may be people that surround that, people in PwC, KPMG. But what we're trying to do is that we're trying to get and connect to those people. Now, not in a pitch slap, here's my product, because no one's interested in your company or product. This is about conversations. This is about, LinkedIn is the world's biggest networking event. Treat it like that. So what you're doing is that you're connecting to people and say, hey, Adam, you sound really interesting. I think I heard you and Tim Hughes on the podcast. Can I connect? Now, you're going to say, well, I'm really flattered because, yes, thanks. I put a lot of effort into the podcast. So you'll connect to it. Now, and immediately don't start selling your products and services. Again, this is a conversation. And so when we connect to people, we're talking about building relationships. Now, relationships don't need to take a long time, and connections don't need to take a long time. Now, The way that search works on LinkedIn is based on if someone is searching for your product and service, what will happen is that it's different from Google. If you go to Google and search, what happens is you'll type in what's the capital of Nigeria, and it will basically tell you.
Yep.
If you type in what's the best CRM system in the world, it basically everybody will buy that search, and it doesn't tell you what you want. The way that search works on LinkedIn is based on your proximity of your network. So what happens is that if somebody in the people that you're trying to sell to is trying to search for your product, you need to be standing next to them, and they need to be on your network for you to see that, which is why you
never really thought about it like that. And it makes sound very interesting. Yeah.
So we always recommend to people that your LinkedIn, if you need to get that, you need to have the professional edition, at least the professional edition of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn allows you about 200 connections a week. And we always recommend that you use those, because that's the opportunity to have 200 conversations. So I've just got off from just on a review with my sales guy in France. And he was just telling me that so far this week, he sent 200 connections and 80 people have connected to him. So he's built his network by 80. And of course, he's now got the opportunity to go back to those people and have conversations, which is a conversation for another day. The third thing that you need is content. Now, if we think about the way that buyers buy, is that they're looking for information. They're looking for insight. Now, we're not looking for brochures, and we're not looking for white papers, because we know what they're going to say. They all say the same thing: buy my product because we're great. Because that's how everybody goes to market. Nobody goes to market and says, well, yeah, we're a bit expensive and the customer service isn't very good. We all say we're great. So as buyers, we know it's going to say that, so we can just ignore it. So when you go to your LinkedIn profile and you're searching, you'll go boring, 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 boring. That's interesting. And what you need to be is that's interesting. And the way that you do that, and you wanted to talk about rolling out this across teams and in organizations, the sales leaders and the leadership need to give salespeople leeway to be themselves. People buy people. What we're looking for as buyers is someone that's going to help us. We're looking for insights. I remember going for a meeting with the finance director of one of the big mobile networks or cell networks, as you say, Vodafone. And I'm going into the finance directors and sitting down and saying, what's the top 3 things that keep you awake at night? Now, by doing that, you've got a great opportunity to write a piece of content. You don't need to mention the company. You don't need to mention the name. But you could say, I think these are the 3 things that are currently impacting sale organizations. So what we're doing is that it's about giving the salespeople the right and the ability to actually create their own content. Now, we've done research on, and I should say everything that we talk about is backed by research and backed by data. It's not Tim Hughes' opinion, it's all data backed. So we've done research, and it's not difficult because you just go out onto LinkedIn and look at different types of content. What you'll see is that if you're posting brochures and white papers and stuff, that the corporate propaganda, you won't get much engagement.
Right.
Or if it does get a lot of engagement, it's because someone sent an email out and said, can you all like this post? And because they won't be connected to the right people, they won't be actually influencing the people they're trying to influence. So they'll just be in an echo chamber and they're kind of wasting the time. What we know is that their different content will work in different ways. The best content that works on LinkedIn is human content. And anybody who's out there, try this. Tomorrow, get a photo of your brochure and put it on LinkedIn and just leave it and see how much engagement you get. The next day, take a photo of you holding your brochure up and see how much engagement you'll get. And I bet you'll get more engagement with you holding the brochure than the picture of the brochure.
What a brilliant.
And that's the difference. So when we scroll, what we're looking for is, there was a guy contacted us. He said, I can't understand why I can't get getting engagement. And because he was just flipping brochures from marketing. So he said, put some human out. So his son was learning how to dive. He put his picture of his son with his diving kit on and stuff. He got over 250. And it was like, I can't believe this. Well, yes. And then he goes back to flipping brochures. And so the 3 things is you need to have a buyer-centric profile. you need to be connecting into the accounts and have a digital territory. And you need to have content which is insightful. And we all know what's insightful and what isn't.
Okay.
And we need to have that leeway. And it's not a case of just putting out content, because if you don't have the network, people aren't going to see it. And if you don't have a profile and you look like a spammer, they're just going to ignore you. So it's kind of the throw you into them.
So let's just dig in on a couple of aspects, sort of across those three different areas, three pillars. So when it comes to the buyer profile, you've got the most unusual headline.
Yeah.
And your headline is, I should have played Quidditch for England. Amazing thing is I can't remember my buyer profile. I can remember yours. Why didn't you use that as your, when you
just the point, you can't remember yours, but you can remember mine.
Yeah, that's it. That's probably it, right?
So the summary title on your LinkedIn profile is the most visible thing about you on the internet.
Yes.
Apart from your name and your photo. So if you Google yourself, if you don't have a blog or anything like that, because Google loves LinkedIn because it's full of content, if you Google yourself, what will come up? It will be your photo, your name, and your summary title. Your job as a salesperson is to get someone to come to your LinkedIn profile. Because if you have professional edition and above, LinkedIn will tell you who's looked at your LinkedIn profile. So what if you've got head of tax at Beaton's Group, people are just going to go boring and move on.
Yeah.
If it says something like should have played Quidditch for England, they'll go, what on earth is that? Come to my LinkedIn profile. I know that you've been. And immediately, so anybody who comes to my LinkedIn profile, if they're interesting, whoever it is, will probably get a note from me saying, you've been to my LinkedIn profile. Have you found what you wanted? Can we connect? And then we're starting a process of conversation. So I get a lot of marketing people coming to my, sorry, I got a bubble come up.
I don't know where that comes from.
I think it's one of these new things if you wave your hands in a particular way. So I get a lot of people from marketing managers and stuff will look at my LinkedIn profile, and I'll just go back to them and they'll say, well, actually, we're looking for a speaker for a sales kickoff or something. So, well, I can do that. And I say, this is what I would normally do. So I get 25% of my business just from people looking at my LinkedIn profile.
Fascinating. I never realized that's how that worked. You've got to be rethinking how I go.
But this is not just that one thing, because everybody can go out and say, okay, I'm going to put that out as a tactic. Now, what you'll find is that most LinkedIn trainers will say that's wrong. What you need to do is what you do. So I get a lot of people connecting to me says, I help CEOs with their fitness and meeting their goals. And I just go ignore, right? Because I know what's going to happen. They're going to pitch me, or I'm an accountant that helps small businesses with that. And I go, ignore. This thing about having it, what you do is an act of self-harm. And people have to realize that this isn't about selling. This is about networking. Mm-hmm. And this is about psychology and using psychology of buyers and psychology of networking to find out, to get business. I've just sat down with my French guy and gone through with him and said, right, when you run a meeting, this is how you get a meeting. And then when you run it, this is what you do. Because if you do it in this format, what will happen is that the person will actually turn around and say to you, what do you do? You don't have to go and pitch. You can use psychology to basically get to the person to say, so tell me what you do, Tim. Well, thank you very much.
Let's talk about your French guy, because you said he got 80 connections out of 200 invites. That's amazing. 40% these days, that's freaking amazing. So play out your headline of, I should have played Quidditch for England. So you send out an invite to head of sales of big software corporation of America, whoever it happens to be. How does that work in terms, because that's the first thing they see, right? When they see the invite.
Yeah, but what happens is that people will check you out. So if your profile makes you, if you look like a spammer, I saw a guy the other day who obviously is very proud of this. It said, I've made President's Club in the last 4 of the last 5 years.
Yep.
And once I get my teeth into a prospect, either they die or I die first. Yeah. Now, I'm sure he's very proud of that. And I'm sure he's a great salesperson. But most buyers will look at that and run a mile.
He's probably looking for a job, right?
Well, he probably has open network around his,
Yeah.
but it's the thing. There is this expectation about that. It's all about you've got to pitch,
Right.
and I understand that in some markets that may work, but it doesn't work as well as this.
No.
So let me tell you. So we've been running a benchmark now for the last 12 months. We took a bunch of cold callers, retrained them in social selling, and said, right, you're now going to be social selling. And what we've done is that we've found that they're now getting each SDR is now getting 10 meetings, on average 10 meetings a week. The good ones are getting 25. They're actually complaining they don't have enough time for all the meetings they've got. Now, 10 meetings a week, it would be transformational for most organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we've still got these people saying, oh yeah, cold calling is great. Okay, well, that's a bit like saying horse and carts are great. And I know some places still use horse and carts, but I actually have a car because I find it's more efficient and I can get there faster. And that's the difference that's taken place, the transformation that we've seen. So we're also finding, I'm just looking over here because I need to get that. So we're now currently getting a 34% next action. So don't forget that whenever you run a meeting, what you need to do is you need to get a next action, which is a demo or a discovery or whatever it is. So what's happening is that as well as those meetings, that we're getting an exponential next action rate as well. And this is transformational.
So let's talk about transformation. So you're working with a big organization. Let's say they've got 50 salespeople, a marketing team of 10, and you're trying to train them you're trying to help them transform the way they sell. If you're the head of sales, chief growth officer, or the CEO of that company, what does it look like? I mean, it's like there's a lot of, how does the adoption curve work?
So we generally train people in cohorts of 10, and generally we do a pilot first of all, so people can get an understanding about what it's about. What we've done is that in terms of the training and coaching that we give it, what happens is that we've built change control into that. So we've actually built the guidelines from the International Coaching Federation into it in terms of the way that you structure the training and coaching. And then also what we've done is that we've got the Institute of Sales Professionals certification as well. So that what we know in terms of a methodology is a proper, you do this, and you do this. Mm-hmm. In terms of adoption, I know that you wanted to talk about that. Like anything, what we get is a classic bell curve, which is 20% of the people, what happens is that they're probably wanting to do this already. They're probably even doing this or trying to do it already, but doing tactics and stuff. And what you're doing is that you're giving them permission, and that easily builds the ROI for the project. The 60%, what happens is you've got people that what we can do, because what we do is we do change management. And what we do is that we can move those people 10, 20, 30%.
Yes.
And that is a way that we can get the majority of people doing what we need to do. 20% of the people quite often say, I'm not interested. This is not for me.
Yep.
And when we talk to leadership, it's either a case of you need to decide what you want to do, but you need to manage them. One company I worked at, we fired them. At another company I worked at, they put lots of money in terms of coaching them further. So there's different ways and means. Right. But in terms of any acceptance of any new way of working, you're always going to get that bell curve. But generally, we're seeing increases in revenue of 30% and sales cycle reductions of 20%. And those usually easily pay for the project.
Are you able to go back? I mean, I take it your engagements last a period of time, 6 months, a year. Well, how long does it typically take?
Well, yes. So generally what we're doing is that we're coaching and training people over a 12-week period. Okay. And you need to do that because of the fact that because you're asking them to do new things, you need to have time to think. That doesn't, but interesting enough, we actually usually get ROI starting at week 3. Because what we do at week 3 is actually teach people how to connect in a non-spammy way. And just by having the connections going out and the conversations actually starts building the ROI of the project.
And do you go back 6 months, a year later and see how things are going?
Yes. So one of the things, we do a number of things around measuring influence. So there's a number of measures that we can do before we get to the CRM, but one of the measures that we do is around influence. So for example, one of our clients makes desktop not PCs, but the monitors.
Yeah.
And the CEO wanted to be famous for power supplies. So I haven't looked recently, but he was number one in the world for power supplies, the most influential person. And he got a piece of inbound a month for that. I know it's not a piece of inbound a deal every month. Inbound isn't amazing, but it's one deal that you not have to get what to do. And that's what I mean by putting the time into understanding what influence means. There's a monetary return for that.
I know from my own experience with my own business, and it's grown really fast. I mean, we've grown fast. And I analyzed my source of business in the last couple of years. 50% comes from referrals, which LinkedIn has a direct relationship with, because a lot of those people are people I've either got to know or I've fostered those relationships over time, nurtured those relationships over time through the content that I put out on LinkedIn. And then 50% of it comes from inbound. A lot of that's through content and SEO. What somebody said to me the other day is that I was looking for somebody who has healthcare expertise, healthcare technology expertise, and ABM expertise. And it seems like Health Launchpad is it. You guys are the guys who do that. And so I was researching that about a year ago, but I wasn't ready to engage. And so I read a lot of your stuff, and I've been following you on LinkedIn for a year, and now is the right time for us. So now we're ready to engage, and they're now a very significant client for us. So I've seen LinkedIn influence both of the ways that we get business, and I'm a maniac about it.
Yeah, I think that quite often a lot of cold calling gurus will basically say it's all about posting and hoping. What you do is you post content and hope something will come through. Well, they just don't know what they're talking about. This is a strategy.
Yeah.
And whether you want to use inbound or whether you want to do cold outbound, we've been doing this cold outbound benchmark for over 12 months. Anybody can, if people want to come and see the data, they're more than welcome to do that. But these are the figures and this is the data that we're getting. Somebody on LinkedIn accused me of making it up. So it's like, why would I do that? If you want to come and see it, come and see it. One of the things that the spin-offs that I think that people don't quite often see is that we're talking about sales. This company that makes monitors, they don't spend any money on recruitment anymore. So they don't spend any money on recruitment ads or recruitment consultants. Yeah. Purely because what happens is that people can see what they've done is that they're externalizing their culture, and people are going, this is the company that I want to work for.
Yeah.
So what happens whenever we go into organizations and we empower the salespeople to talk on social is immediately the HR team go, this is really interesting. How do we do it? Yeah. And actually, it's a very similar process. And again, what you're doing is that you're connecting to the people that maybe that you want to recruit or the areas that they may be playing in. And then what happens is that this goes out right across the enterprise. Yeah. So whether it's supply in the buyers or customer service, what they see is this ability to actually use social right across the organization. And we're the only company in the world that has this vision and has the platform in place to allow to organizations to do that.
Well, Tim, I knew having you on the show would not be disappointing, and it's been so insightful. I mean, I have to say, I've done a lot of these episodes, and this has been one where I probably learned the most from.
Thank you.
So it's really great. I'm going to go back and change my profile, I think, this weekend. But before we go, though, could you give the audience 2 or 3 tips, actionable things that they could do something about this week?
Well, I would go back to the 3 things I talked about. So your buyer-centric profile, you need to understand that the summary title is the most visible thing about you on the internet, and just having your job title or what you do, or some people tell you to stuff it with keywords, as then nobody reads. And there's so much bad advice out there. So, turning your LinkedIn, your summary title into something, it should be your why. If you won the lottery or whatever tomorrow, I can guarantee you, I see people that says, I'm passionate about digital transformation. You don't do that at the weekend. Oh, come on, let's go and do some digital transformation this afternoon. Nobody says that. You're a footballer or a soccer ball, whatever it is. And this is your why. Well, and this is about a conversation. The other thing that's really efficient about this is that I had someone come to me and said, I think it's the most unprofessional thing that you've done, and I think you should remove it immediately. And I just ignore them because I know that I'm never going to sell to them because they just don't understand me. They don't understand my sense of humor. So what I've done is that anybody who looks at it and says that's unprofessional, I've qualified them out.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So I'm not going to spend that sale where you travel for 2 hours, have an hour meeting, and then come back 2 hours. So you spend 5 hours of the day and they come back and send you an email saying, I don't like you and I don't want to do business with you. You qualified all that out.
Yeah, I did. A lot of drives
really
across these states that I just wish I'd never done. Okay, so that's one piece of actual advice.
Okay, the other thing is to think about your profile. When you write your profile, this is not about pitching your company and your products. If I'm a buyer, I want to see that you're interesting. I want to see when you did a job, what did you learn? Did you have a mentor? Why did you leave? Why did you go to the next job? Well, there was an hour commute and I actually wanted to have something closer to home, or something that makes you as a person, as a human, and put that in. And the other thing is that the way Google and LinkedIn works is it sees your LinkedIn profile basically as a set of text. It's an old thing. LinkedIn is a very old social network. It doesn't do images very well, and it's very text-based because it used to be just a place where you put your CV. So if you want to be found, what you need to do is you need to be putting in keywords. Don't put them in your title or in the summary, because this is rubbish. Basically, you can pepper them through the whole of your profile. So you can just go to ChatGPT and say, give me some link. Think of yourself as a chief marketing officer. Give me some LinkedIn keywords for whatever it is you sell in a particular market, and then pepper those through your LinkedIn profile.
That is a fantastic idea. First suggestion.
You asked for 3, so I've given you 3. How about that?
Oh, those are great. Those are fantastic. Tim, I can't thank you enough. You've been a terrific to have.
Can I mention the book?
Oh my goodness! Oh, of course. I was going to say, please let them know how people can reach you.
So there's my book, which I cover all these things: social selling techniques to influence buyers and change makers. It's the 2nd edition. You need the one with the yellow cover.
Yep.
And it's available on Amazon worldwide. Or if you want to come to my LinkedIn profile, I'm Tim Hughes, and it has that. It should have played Quidditch for England. You'll find me.
It's a great book. I can vouch for it. I really enjoyed reading it. And also, in fact, actually, I think where I heard about you was you were on the wonderful Doug Burdett's Marketing Book podcast.
Yes.
And then I checked out your LinkedIn profile and got to know you that way. And so, Tim, thank you. And look forward to following you on LinkedIn. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up. Thanks. And as well as thanking Tim and thanking him, so I want to thank you for listening or for watching. If you're watching, you can subscribe on Spotify and Apple or whatever your favorite podcast app is. And if you're listening to it and you want to see us, you can watch us on YouTube. So do subscribe. We've got tons of episodes coming up. Lots and lots of stuff coming up in the spring, particularly with hymns about to happen. Have a great weekend or rest of the day.